Hey, Brice Paterik of Locked on Rangers. How was your night?
You are Locked On MLB, your daily MLB podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Howdy, baseball fans, and welcome to Locked On MLB, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. This is the daily podcast. We talk about all of Major League Baseball. I am your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please call me Sully. I'm an Emmy-nominated television producer who's been a baseball podcaster for well over a decade now, and we've now concluded my fifth full season as a host of on the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm now entering season number 6. Follow us at Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter and Instagram. I'm your pal Sully. I'm at Sully Baseball on Twitter, Sully Baseball Podcast on Instagram. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150. If your team wins, visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Pulling back the curtain a little bit, I was all ready to do a podcast solo tonight when I saw Brice Paterik in my Twitter timeline, and I just threw out, want to jump aboard? Ladies and gentlemen, the host of the Locked On Rangers podcast and a fan of, say it with me, the 2023 World Series champion Texas Rangers, Brice Paterik. In the name of Toby Hara, it has real. You did not dream it. There is no David Freese. There is no Nelson Cruz leap. How does it feel?
Oh, it feels incredible. Feels like nothing bad is ever going to happen to me ever again. This is the greatest thing to ever happen to anyone in the history of Earth and humanity, and not just Earth, but this solar system, the universe, any alternate universes. This is the best thing to ever happen, ever.
You know, Carl Sagan talked about the pale blue dot, that when you look at Earth from Saturn, it's hard to believe that tiny little dot is where all the wars were and all the pain and suffering. But I think if Carl Sagan could go from Saturn and look back now, he would see that the Rangers' victory today of Arizona permeated like the rings of Saturn throughout the cosmos. And I believe there are other galaxies right now who are going to get this light billions of years from now. And what a joy that will be.
It'll be beautiful. I'll have to.
By the way, we're sticking to the script that we wrote. By the way,
let's say you should see my notes for this episode. I think I had something about Zac Gallen's command being good and Nathan Eovaldi's command not being good, and then oh my god, yeah. Oh my god, that was the extent of my notes for my own show.
Yeah,
and, it's about all you needed.
By the way, I have to say, I remember during my stand-up comedy days, the great Eddie Pepitone, who's a wonderful stand-up comedian, the Bitter Buddha, who's a rabid Yankee fan. And the two of us had a kind of a little email and phone rivalry during those years. And I remember he was on stage after the Yankees won the 2000 World Series, and he was yelling, "The Yankees won the World Series, and I checked my bank account, and it was the same. I thought we all won. Where's my Yankee money?" I always think of that when a team wins. I was when the Red Sox won in 2004, I was at a bar in Santa Monica, California, and my wife was pregnant with my twins. And I returned a friend of mine and said, like, "I'm so glad this happened before the birth of my children, so I could say this is the happiest moment of my life."
Well, I've got no kids, I've got no wife, so this is the happiest moment of my life.
I'm so happy for you. And one of the things that I said that I wanted in this postseason, seeing that no team that I really root for.
You wanted a game 7, and I said, no, I want 5. End it now.
But what I also, okay, that's true. I did want a game 7, okay. But what I also wanted was a generational moment, a moment that a fan base can look up and say, I've waited my whole life for this.
Okay, I will ask you. You did also say that you wanted an incredible, like, great game. Was this that? I know it ended 5-0, but it felt like it was that throughout it. Is that
I
how you felt as well?
I thought for the first 8 innings were absolutely thrilling. And that 9th inning was weird. Well, let's break it down a little bit here. Oh, by the way,
I don't
the
think I talk about
Florida,
the game at all on my show. I don't. I don't think I
well,
talked
we can
about
break
it
it
at
down,
all.
but first I got to go through the. I have the trivia question. I didn't even get to that. The trivia
Is the trivia
question.
question who's the World Series champion this year? Because
Yes,
I
who
have
is the
the
World Series
answer.
champion?
It's the Texas Rangers.
That is correct. The other trivia question I asked was, of all the managers who have managed 2 different teams to the World Series, and there are a few of them, and the who is the only person to manage a team to the American League and National League to the World Series and be in the Hall of Fame as a player, not a Hall of Famer as a manager, but a Hall of
Ooh,
Fame player.
I have a
Do you know
guess. I don't know
who?
if it's right. Is it
Who?
Dusty Baker?
It is not Dusty Baker.
Okay.
The answer is
That
Yogi Berra. Yogi Berra managed the 1964 Yankees to Game 7 of the World Series and the New York Mets to Game 7 of the 1973
was he a good
World Series.
player? I heard he was a good player.
Yes, he was a Hall of Famer, multiple MVPs, and did well in October. Okay, and a couple people got that. Nicholas Kramer got that correct. John Murphy Jr., surprise, he seemed to get a lot of them correct. And a couple other people got it right, but it's good for you. Okay, I got it. Let's just break some things down in the game a little bit here, because first of all, um, I give tons of credit to Zac Gallen. Zac Gallen was handed the ball with the World Series on the line, and you could not, for the first 6 innings, you could not possibly. Hell, if you looked at his line, you could not do better. You couldn't ask for more than him. But he had one base runner through 6 innings. And he was like at 40 pitches through like 4 innings. It was like he was just
It was
the
nuts.
innings were over before before you could say Toby Hara.
Well, I was saying, like, so this is a game plan that was very, like, the antithesis of what the Rangers did, like, all year. Was, I mean, most of this Rangers offense, they worked a lot of deep counts. They have a lot of guys who work very long at bats, including especially Evan Carter, whose nickname is Full Count Carter. They called him 3-2 Carter or FC. What they botched the nickname. It's Full Count Carter, FCC. Like the regulatory agency. And then Mitch Garver also works a lot of long at bats, and so does Nathaniel Lowe. And there's also some guys who swing very early in counts in Corey Seager. And Corey Seager can do that because he's very good at baseball, and he usually hits a lot of first pitch home runs. But everybody else is not Corey Seager. And they were trying to get on this guy very
Right.
early. And they had the same game plan against Justin Verlander. And, like, I get it. He's a Hall of Famer. And, like, no disrespect to Gallen, but he's not quite a Verlander's ilk. He's very good. He's one of the best
And he had
pitchers
a
in the game right
great year
now.
this year. He had a
And he
really great year.
did.
Yeah. I
And he
mean,
had a great game today. But it was
Mhm.
like so many guys just grounding out first pitch, and, like, so many different innings that were like, get 2 outs in 2 pitches. And it was like, come on, just see a pitch, take a pitch.
and it's interesting there's a couple things I found very interesting about this game. First of all, you had through 6 innings, Uvalde was throwing a shutout and Gallen was throwing a shutout, and yet the similarities ended there because, like, everything, the first 6 innings, Gallen might as well have been on a rocking chair. Everything was just so easy, and everything was like it was like a absolute panic whenever Uvalde just wiggled out of jam after jam through the first 5 innings. But I have to say, Bruce Bochy did 2 things as a manager handling the pitchers today that I thought were fantastic. And I'll tell you the first thing he did. And I remember, actually, I got on the phone with my mom at one point. My mom was watching the World Series, and she's a big baseball fan. She's listening to this. My mom, but she's a huge Bochy fan. My dad, my late father, was a big San Francisco Giant fan. Bochy was his manager. That's the reason why my mom and I were rooting so hard for the Rangers. So my mom and I called them the Bochys. They weren't
Your
even
mom
the
wasn't
Rangers.
your mom wasn't just rooting for me. I mean, I get it. It's fine. But
Well, keep in mind who am I paired with every week? With Millard from the Diamondbacks. So if there was
yeah, but also the few times that I'm very charismatic.
you are
Okay.
very correct. Yes, you have the charisma. But Bruce Bochy did two really sort of I talked with my mom before the sixth inning, and I said, you know, uh, it said I said he's going to take Eovaldi out after 5 because even though he's throwing a shutout, he's stressful innings and everything like that, and they're going to take him out. Now I'm going to go take a quick break right now, but I'm going to come back and talk about that decision and another decision which makes of handling the pitchers that make me love Bruce Bochy more than I thought I could. Well, baseball is officially over, and evidently a football season's going on. Has it started yet? Has the football season
Allegedly,
started yet?
allegedly it started.
All right. Well, Gabe, I guess opening week is this week. um, this is the time of year where I look up to my football friends and say, "Who's good?" This NFL season's underway,
The Texas Rangers are good.
The Texas Rangers are good, and so is the sad copy. Score early this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets with any winning $5 moneyline bet. That's $150 if your team wins. And if you're thinking about joining FanDuel, I know you are. There's no better time to get in on the action. The app is so easy to use. There's a wide range of betting options, including spreads, player props, over-unders, and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the National Football League season. FanDuel is the official partner of the NFL. All right. We're here with Brice Paterik of Locked On World Series champion Texas Rangers. Just keep saying it.
I think my entire show was just me saying the Texas Rangers are World Series champions, and you know what? That's fine. I think that's what it needed. I want to guess what your thought is about the decision of pitching decisions.
Mm-hmm.
Was it don't throw all this Chapman in a big inning? Because that's what I was thinking.
All right,
that's what that
was the one thing.
That's fine. We can go there. I was 110. No, 200. No, 2,000% sure that was not going to end well for the Texas Rangers.
No.
It was a 1-0 lead. And it was a bullpen game. It's kind of the epitome of this entire run of this Texas Rangers team winning in the playoffs. All of the games that they did not win in the regular season. They did not win comeback games. They did not win games where they had to rely on their bullpen. They did not win one-run games. They were historically terrible last year, and they were still very bad this year. And they had a 1-1 lead, and they turned it over to Aroldis Chapman.
Yep.
And he got a walk because he does not know where the baseball is going. And I think an underrated good part of about this game and the season being done is that I don't think I'll ever have to see Aroldis Chapman on my team again.
No.
Hoping.
No.
But he didn't give up the lead. I am very shocked.
Yes, I am stunned by that. But I'll tell you the first thing that I liked is that Bochy let Eovaldi go out in the 6th. And even though Eovaldi was throwing a shutout through 5, he did look gassed. And there was a sense of, oh boy, they matched him inning for inning, but he could collapse any inning. But Bochy is smart. Bochy knew that Eovaldi has pitched on guts before. We've seen what he did in the famous game out of relief in the 2018 World Series against Los Angeles. Why can't the Red Sox find players like Nathan Eovaldi, please?
I don't know. But him and Mookie Betts, I think they could use a guy like him.
That's crazy talk. But he knew that they were facing the bottom of Arizona's order, which the bottom of Arizona's order has done some damage. But it was basically the mentality of, all right, I'm going to leave you in there unless you let up a base runner. And if he got through that, and by getting through it, and by doing that thing that I've been screaming at managers to do, which is push him one more inning, because that means you didn't have to burn a reliever in the sixth. That means you got through six. Now, we saw yesterday they got through five with Heaney, which is probably more than they thought they were going to get through with them. And yesterday was weird. And by the way, that shows you how great baseball is, because yesterday the Rangers scored 10 runs in the first 3 innings, and today they didn't have a single hit through 6. There's no sport like baseball.
You know what's so insane is that you and I were both complaining about the same thing of, why did you use Jose Leclerc there? You had a game tomorrow, and with a 8-run lead, they used Jose Leclerc, but here they are, and then let Josh Sports finish it out with a 5-0 lead.
Okay,
baseball.
That I'll tell you the other thing, and you caught on it, is that Spores came in and he bailed out Chapman in the 7th. And then Spores came out and pitched the 8th. And because he didn't throw that many pitches to get out of the inning in the 7th, so we'll have him go out in the 8th. The Rangers tack on the runs, and the poor schmuck in center field for Arizona let it run under his glove.
I felt so bad for him, honestly.
But Marcus Semien made it a moot point, because any memory of his signing being bad initially was flushed down the toilet. The entire contract was justified the nanosecond that home run cleared the fence.
Give them, I said this a million times throughout this run, give them both another $500 million, because $500 million was not enough for both of them.
But he let Spores pitch the 9th. And I loved that. Beyond the fact that I always love it when an unusual pitcher clinches the World Series. I call that the Red Oldham syndrome. And if you don't know what that means, one of the most obscure pitchers in baseball history came out to retire 3 Hall of Famers in Game 7 of the 1925 World Series, and the next year he was out of baseball.
Can I give some context for Josh Spores, just for the casual fans who probably don't, because most people probably don't know about Josh Spores, but he was a former, I believe, 2nd-round pick by the Dodgers, who was out of UVA, who was a reliever basically from the time he was drafted. And the Dodgers gave up on him. He was a waiver claim for the Rangers. And he was the most will they, won't they kind of guy. He always had the electric stuff, the fastball play up, the breaking balls were very good, but it was very inconsistent. And if the Dodgers, the team that just knows how to develop very good players over and over and over again, if they said, nah, this guy's not worth the effort, what makes you think that you're a team that could go and figure it out with the guy? And so many times he was just on the very edge of the 25-man roster, the 40-man roster. And it was just so many different times. There's like, all right, we've seen it. It's not going to happen with Josh Spores. Even as recently as September, the Rangers put him on the IL.
Yeah.
And it was kind of almost felt like a little bit of a phantom IL instead of like, oh, this guy just kind of doesn't have it right now, so let's put him on the IL until he figures it out. And at that point, it was one of like probably 7 different times that I was like, all right, it's time to give up on Josh Spores. It's not happening. And then he comes back for the playoffs. And here he is.
Great.
And he was the best Rangers reliever in the playoffs. Like, he was absolutely sensational. And here he is closing out the World Series game of like, you thought you were smarter than the Dodgers at how to develop this guy, and you were right. That's just nuts to me.
And the reason, one of the reasons why I love letting him pitch there was Bochy realizes I can clinch the World Series right now, and this guy's pitching well. So if I bring in another reliever and suddenly that other reliever lets up a couple of hits, and next thing you know, the tying runs at the plate, and you think, why did I take out the guy who was pitching well? And essentially using the mentality of, I'm going to use this pitcher until he needs relief. So the mentality he had with Eovaldi that stretched his start out 1 extra inning worked well with Spores with a 2 1/3 inning save, which was like, hey, he was pitching well. So why don't I ride that hand until he needs help? And with that, they clinched the World Series, obviously. But each time he used, there's this mentality, we have to use the closer at this point, or even the sense that it's a coronation, like even if it's not a save situation. But how many times have we seen situations where it wouldn't have been a save situation for Leclerc? It was a save situation for Spores because he was pitching with a 1-0 lead. Then it blew into, what was it, 5? What was the final? It was 5.
It was 5-0.
Yeah, when it blew into 5 after the Semien home run, it would not have been a save situation for Leclerc. And how many times do you hear people say things like, "Man, this closer doesn't pitch so well when it's not a save situation." Blah blah
Well,
blah blah blah.
he had pitched well. He had pitched okay in non-save situations, but there had been so many situations where it was like you don't really need Leclerc, like that game 2 in Baltimore where the Rangers piled on 11 runs, and it was like a 5-run game at that point, and they threw in Leclerc, and it was like you really didn't have to do that. And even in last night's game, where it
Yeah,
was like you could give Will Smith one more batter, like there's no reason you couldn't give him one more batter. It's just like a nod of like because this bullpen had been so bad. And honestly, I think he should have, not just because like you don't want to burn your closer in when you have a game tomorrow, because of what Will Smith had done this whole season. This Rangers bullpen was a hot mess express for literally the entire season. And the only thing holding it together for the first 3-4 months was Will Smith. He really was holding this together. And granted, he fell apart at the end. And I did not want to see him at all in this game or any other games after last night. But it was not a close game. It's still at that point, and I think he absolutely could have gotten one more batter and probably should have. But hey, it doesn't matter.
I'm about to say I was nitpicking about the bullpen management for the World Series champion Texas Rangers. Boy, that is someone who has seen the champagne glass half empty in the night where your team win. Yeah, I think you know what I'm going to give him. I'm going to give him a mulligan. Okay, we are here with Brice Paterik. I read an article. There's an article going on. Bruce Bochy is the first manager. He's now the third manager to win a World Series in both leagues, but he's the first one to win a World Series with a team that he had beaten.
That's fun.
Yeah.
I will defend myself a little bit in the bullpen nitpicking because I was having a conversation like that with Ben Casbick, host of Locked On Giants,
Hmm.
about like nitpicking some of Bochy's decisions, and we kind of came to the same conclusion of like, yeah, there's some like questionable decisions, like hitting Robbie Grossman third in the first 3 games of the postseason when Mitch Garver was there, and I was like, why are you doing that? But like even the decisions that are questionable, it just kind of got to a point, especially in San Francisco, and I think with this ring, it is already at that point in Texas where it's like, yeah, maybe the decisions might look questionable, but he's won now 4 rings. So
Yeah.
it's like, just shut up because he knows what he's doing.
I mean, I'm saying the same. There's a lot of times when Francona managed the Red Sox, he did some things like, Terry, what are you doing? But when then he walks away with 2 World Series titles, you're going like, well, there you
All
go.
right. All right.
Um, Brice, I'm going to tell you something here, which you may like. Okay,
Okay.
you there's there are you're having it's a great night for you right now. The Rangers won the World Series, and you're all night long. You're going to be replaying the clips over and over again at work tomorrow. On the toilet tomorrow, in the shower tomorrow. You're going to be playing that last out, hearing from all the different announcers. I get it. I get it. And you're going to be floating in a dream world for the next few weeks, and you are going to be the single easiest person to buy a present for this holiday season because there's anything. Here's some toilet paper with the Ranger logo on it. I will cherish this. Okay, that's all great. 2 things are going to happen that you're going to realize. Well, I guess it's all encompassed in one thing. The Rangers have had, as you know, an underrated, tortured history. Whether you're going to the 70s when they were in first place by themselves in mid-August of 1977,
I
and
remember
then
that very well.
and then they dropped in 4 weeks. They dropped 10 games in the standings. They were in first place by themselves to 10 games out in a 4-week span. So many great players, whether it was Toby Harrah, Buddy Bell, Juan Gonzalez winning 2 MVPs, Pudge Rodriguez, Rafael Palmeiro. The bullpen collapses in the 96 playoffs. That team that could have gone to the ALCS, winning the division 3 out of 4 years, but always running up against the Yankees. Obviously, the Edgar Renteria home run against Cliff Lee, the Nelson Cruz leap, the Jason Freese homer, uh, Josh Hamilton dropping the ball, the bat flip, all these things that you see in these montages, they're now gone. They're exercised. Their head is spun around and they're thrown down the stairs.
I'll do you one more. Game 5 this year.
Yeah.
Jose Altuve's home run. It means nothing.
All that's gone now. Do you know what all that is? All that's prologue. All that is prologue. All of that becomes agony that is gone. And I'll tell you exactly when you're going to feel it, the positivity of that. It's not going to be this offseason. This offseason is going to be
Are you sure not going to feel it when my team signs Shohei Ohtani?
No, I'll tell you exactly when you're going to feel it. The positivity of what happened. This entire offseason, you're going to be living on a raft floating on a strawberry ice cream river. I mean, you won't even believe how wonderful it's going to feel. Opening day, or in the parade that's inevitably going to happen, is going to be like the end of Star Wars when they're giving the medals to Han and Luke, and they should have given one to Chewie. This offseason is going to be amazing. Then comes the ring ceremony and them raising the flag and handing out the rings. And they're probably going to have Pudge Rodriguez and Michael Young and all the great Rangers of the past come out. And there's going to be tears flowing down your eyes and everything like that. Okay? That's not when you're going to feel it. When you're going to feel it is somewhere down the line, the Rangers are going to wet the bed. I know this because as a Red Sox fan, the Red Sox wet the bed big time in 2011.
Sorry, the Rangers are actually never going to lose another game for the rest of
Listen
life.
to me. I'm giving you wisdom. There will be a moment when the Rangers blow it. It may not be next year. It may be 10 years down the line. But it will just feel like, oh, man, I wanted to win that. And it won't be, I will never see them win. That's gone. You have seen them win. And so because of that, any anguish you have, you're starting from zero. You're not starting from a Nelson Cruz leap. You're not starting from a Lance Berkman hit. You're not starting from a Josh Hamilton dropped fly ball. That's all gone. It's all gone. And that's when you'll realize how great tonight was.
Man, that's beautiful. That's absolutely beautiful. There's so many moments of the casual fan, because I feel like people haven't thought about the Rangers in many, many years, and for good reason. There has been no reason to. I have hosted a daily Texas Rangers podcast since 2019, and the amount of times where the national consciousness should have shifted to the Texas Rangers were, let's see, December 1st, 2021, when they signed everybody. Yep. That's it. Tonight.
Well, look at Brice. I want to have you on, and I don't want you to answer this. This is the trivia question for tonight, for tomorrow. Let me see how many people get it. Trivia questions, and write your answers down here on Yahoo or Locked On MLB Pods on Twitter or on Instagram. Sully Baseball. The trivia question is this: in 2023, what Texas-based team won the World Series? That's the trivia question. I want you to write it out in caps underneath here, or write it at Sully Baseball.
I don't know the answer. This is
no, don't spoil it. If you know it, don't spoil it. Which Texas-based team won the World Series in 2023? That's a trivia question. Write it down there. Brice Paterik, I know you're having a decent night, and you may not be 100% sober. Tell people where they can follow your delirious show.
You can follow my show at Locked On Rangers wherever you get your podcasts, and on YouTube. We are closing in on the 17 billion subscriber mark, which we're hoping for. We'll get there eventually. You can find me on Twitter at Brice Paterik. My lunatic ravings about my some World Series championship team based in Texas. I don't know which one it is.
No spoilers. No spoilers. And how do you like the one segment we did? Let's do one segment together. Here we go. We did a whole darn show.
It's a nice long segment.
Yeah, it's a nice long segment. This is going to be an hour and 40-minute show I'm doing today. Congratulations, man. I'm really happy for you. I really am. You're gonna love how the rest of your baseball life is. It'll be a lot less anguish and agony, even the next time they do wet the bed. And it will happen. And whenever they list the teams that have never won the World Series, it will never include the Texas Rangers again. I'm
What a
looking
beautiful thought.
at. Meanwhile, the Mariners are still never won a pennant. All right. On behalf of Brice Paterik, host of Locked On Rangers, I'm sorry, Locked On World Series champion Rangers, this has been Locked On MLB. I'm your host, Paul Francis Sullivan. Please, please, please call me Sully. I think I'm going to stump a lot of people with that question. It's pretty obscure.
Very hard.